Psst, we need to talk.
What better venue than a romantic sunset in Florida to talk about relationships, especially relationships on the trail? When you're through hiking, or if you're planning a through hike, you may be a little bit concerned that your relationship might not stand the test of the trail. That can be a concern that a lot of people have, whether they are hiking with partner, whether they're leaving someone behind, or maybe they're in a budding relationship. There are lots of situations that cause people to be concerned about the impact of through hiking on their relationship. However, I have not seen it addressed on many, if any, backpacking channels. It's high time that we kind of just lay the cards on the table. To be quite frank, I personally came home from the Appalachian Trail and within months found myself in a really difficult situation as my marriage of 32 years was crumbling. The year after my through hike attempt was the worst year of my life. And I'm not here to dish about my own relationship, but at the same time, I'm just sharing that so that you have some context for where I'm coming from, because I have been through it. And I know plenty of other people have had difficulties as well. I do really believe that a relationship can survive a through hike if the two people who are committed to each other are really proactive, I guess I would say, about making sure that things work. Well, the through hiker is through hiking and the other partner is at home, being the home team, the support team, or even if you're hiking together, because there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. So first, let me just share some things that I found as I was doing some research on the internet as far as people's experiences and concerns about relationships as they were through hiking. These are all anonymous, by the way. I don't want to rat anybody out, but I thought they would be good to share. So the first one is someone says it's not so bad when you can at least talk to them regularly. And that's nice, but it doesn't always happen on the trail, right? So they continue and say that once you can't, it's pretty hard. I would agree with that. It's hard when somebody's expecting to hear from you and they don't, or they feel like they need support and they don't. So that's something to prepare yourself for. And this is the doozy, and this is not from me, but this is a hiker who said, I wouldn't say the through hike caused the breakup, but it definitely brought out the weaknesses in our relationship. So let's talk about that for a moment. If you are in a relationship that you feel like is maybe not on solid ground, it would make sense to delve into that with your partner before you undertake a through hike. Because if you're thinking maybe it's time to end the relationship, it would be a favor to both of you to make that happen before you go out on your through hike. Then you can be free and unencumbered by all those emotional feelings while you're through hiking. Your partner, when they're out of the relationship, can move on with their life. And I think it's just a really honest and respectful thing to do. Now, if you're in a relationship and you're not really sure, about the worst thing you can do is go on a through hike hoping to maybe test the waters with somebody else. The through hiking community, even though it runs for thousands of miles up and down the trail, the rumor mill is alive and well. And people will find out if you are being unfaithful to your partner. They may look at you differently if that's the case. Sometimes the tables are turned and the person at home is not being faithful, and that is also extraordinarily difficult. So if you have cracks in your relationship and you are very concerned about its ability to withstand the through hike, I would take some time, whether that means going to counseling, just having some honest heart-to-heart conversations, talking about expectations for the through hike and how you might be able to work through them. And that one is something that is important no matter whether your relationship is rocky or it could be really solid, because it's just really respectful of your partner to figure out what do they need. And especially while you're gone for 5 or 6 months, how are you going to be able to support them from the trail? Here are a few ideas on how you can do that. Staying in touch, or at least even just letting them know where you are, can help a lot, particularly if they're kind of anxious and they just worry about your well-being. You could use Find My Friends on iPhone or Life 360 or some other apps so that they can find out your location using GPS, even if you're not able to get a cell signal to call them. So that helps. Checking in as often as you can. And if you have a Garmin device or a GPS communicator that allows you to send text, then even if you don't have cell service, you can send a text that says, hey, I'm in camp for the night, I'm safe. And that can give somebody a lot of peace of mind if they're the type of person to worry about you. It can also be extremely helpful, obviously, in an emergency, not even just a life-threatening emergency, because obviously there's an SOS button that you can press. But if it's a difficult situation and say you need to get off the trail, you want to update them about a change in your travel plans, things like that, those text messages on those devices are extremely, extremely beneficial. So staying in communication via text or calls is important. If you can do video calls when you're in town, sometimes people just need to be face to face, even if they're not together personally. They feel they need that sense of comfort of seeing how you've changed on the trail. Is your hair growing? Is your beard growing? Those kinds of things. They want to see the physical manifestations of the through hike and just be able to connect visually with you. That can be really important for some people. So if you know that in advance, then you can work out a way to make sure that you're doing a call when you get into a hotel or a hostel in town to maintain that connection. You could also send little souvenirs or gifts from the trail. If you go into a trail town and you find something neat that you think your partner would like, just pack it up and drop it in the mail in the post office. In fact, you're probably going to be at the post office anyway, right? Maybe either picking up a resupply box or sending home some gear that you don't need. So that would be a pretty easy thing to do, to just say, hey, I'm out here having the time of my life, but I am thinking about you back home. Some people just love to get postcards or letters from where you are. So if you get a chance, and I did this when I was on the trail to lots of my family members, is that just pick a cool postcard and in a gift shop in a town and send those with just a quick little note and tell them how the hike is going. And that was a way for people, not just my spouse at the time, but friends and family to stay in touch as well. So postcards can be kind of fun, particularly they're pictures that might be better than the ones that you're taking. I'm not dissing on your photography skills. Sometimes it's just neat to have a sort of epic picture on a postcard and be able to share that with somebody.
If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button down below. I'd really appreciate it. It helps YouTube to get my videos in front of other people who would enjoy them also.
Now, here's something that somebody else said, and I've just advised you to have some strong conversations and how you talk about how you'll communicate, but also be flexible because things might not turn out how you're planned. This particular person said, we talked about keeping communication up before I left and how we would both be supportive of each other. But when I actually left, it was so much different than what he was expecting. Now, this can happen if this is your first time through hiking or the first time that you two have been apart for quite a while. Sometimes you believe you're going to respond a certain way to somebody's absence, or you feel like you're going to respond a certain way or feel a certain way when you're on the trail. And once you get out there, everything changes. Your plans change. I'm pretty much guaranteed that if you're doing a day-to-day itinerary, that's going to be out of the water within the first 48 hours. So that's an extra bonus tip for you. Both of you may have expectations, and you might talk about those expectations and then suddenly find out that things are really, really different than you anticipated. If that's the case, then you need to sit down and have another conversation and figure out, okay, how do we both adapt to these changing circumstances so that we can maintain that support for each other that we both need while the one partner is through hiking. Now, if you're through hiking with a partner, you may run into situations where one of you has to slow down, one of you maybe even needs to get off the trail, one of you has a family emergency and needs to deal with that. It's important to talk about this beforehand, but you're going to decide in the moment what happens in those circumstances. Does one of you continue on while the other one stops or gets off the trail if necessary? Or do you both get off and take care of the issue and then continue on? Or do you end your hikes together? There was a family that was through hiking, I believe it was last year, and some of the family members, I believe there were 5 of them, some of them couldn't continue. So the others had to go on, but the 2 that couldn't continue were actually doing support. So they were doing trail magic and slack packing and that sort of thing. And that worked out really well when one couldn't hike because of the injury and the rest of the family could. Ultimately, they were all able to finish their through hike, which is really amazing. And they did it because they worked together. Now, if you are single, if you feel like you might want to have some trail hookups, have fun, right? But if you're single, also remember that relationships that are formed on the trail might not last after the trail. When you're meeting somebody on the trail and maybe you're falling head over heels in love with them, the person that you're seeing on the trail is going to be a different person than that started before the trail, and they're probably going to be a different person afterwards. And I'm not saying don't get into a romantic relationship with somebody while you are through hiking, but just be aware that as much as you are changing, they are also changing. And so before you jump into anything crazy like let's get married on Katahdin, right? Make sure that relationship is solid. Give yourself some time after the through hike to see how you both evolve back into, real life, and make sure that relationship is still rock solid footing. Literally, pun intended, maybe, Make sure that relationship is really stable before you move forward, because so many times people find somebody on the trail they're looking for love and they think they found it. And then 6 months afterwards, they're going in different directions because that person, that thru-hiker person, I'm not saying it's not authentic, it's usually very authentic, but it is also a person in that thru-hiking situation. And then when they are put in a different situation, different habits or different expectations or beliefs may come forward that were not as obvious on the trail. So just be cautious about falling in love on the trail. And if it does happen, some of you watching may be in that boat, and you can comment about how wonderful that relationship turned out to be. But I would just caution you to not do anything rash with somebody that you meet on the trail, just because, if it's going to be a long-term relationship, if it's going to last, it's going to last. And it's okay if you give it 6 months or even a year after the trail to make sure that you can settle into life together as a couple and make it work for both of you. Something else that's important as a thru-hiker is that even though your partner may not want to hike with you, or maybe they can't hike with you because of job obligations or family commitments and that sort of thing, it's important to be with somebody who does support your goals. Because if they are undermining you, if they're telling you every time you call, oh, aren't you going to come home soon? Or I didn't think you'd get this far. Those kinds of negative things are going to, number one, detract from your experience. They're going to undermine your motivation. They're going to make you unhappy about thru-hiking, and they are going to probably lead to you getting off the trail, if not breaking up with somebody halfway through your thru-hike. Make sure that the person that you're deciding to do this with as your partner, whether they're a partner at home or on the trail, is as supportive of your goals as you are of theirs, and that they're excited about the thru-hike and excited about taking part in it from whatever role that they have. And you might get out there and be hiking and think, this is awesome. I love my relationship. I love my partner. I want to be with them forever. And then possibly start thru-hiking and think, maybe you're reconsidering everything about your life, your work, where you live, your relationship, everything comes into play. And you feel like you need to have some difficult conversations. Share those feelings, even if they're not the best feelings, and be honest. Be a good human, really. Now, I don't want to give you the idea that a thru-hike is going to ruin your relationship. So many people get thru-hike with a really, really strong relationship, but I'm just encouraging you, if things are not going well, to be proactive about it and not let that drag down your hike and not let that hurt your partner. Another thing you should talk about with your partner before you go is, what do you think things are going to be like after the trail? Have you quit a job to go thru-hike, and you're anticipating that when you come back, you might get a job in a completely different career or a different location? Are you both on board with that? Make sure that those things are in sync so that you can be talking about them while you're on the trail. And that's something that can actually bring you closer, is thinking about, okay, when this thru-hike is done and this major life accomplishment has been checked off the list, what's next? And are we going to do what's next together? And what's that going to look like? How is that going to work for your partner? Maybe it means that you're doing something for your partner to support them in some sort of epic adventure, whether it's outdoors or it's starting a new company, or who knows. But talk about those things beforehand so that you're not thru-hiking with just giant question marks up there of like, I don't know what life's going to be like when it gets back. So many people, I think, do start a thru-hike like that, whether they're in a relationship or not, because they're looking at that as an opportunity to sort of clean the slate. They want to kind of purge their life of negativity, or they want to heal from something traumatic, and they don't really know what's next. That's hard, and it's hard on a partner. So discuss those things as much as possible before you go. Honestly, anybody who thru-hikes is going to face so much change just from the experience. I don't believe that you can hike, 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles, more than that even, and come back the same person. I just really don't believe that you can. And hopefully it is growth, and hopefully it's growth for both of you. But you have to be in conversation the whole time about what those changes are, even if, and this is very often the case, even if you feel like, I can't process what's happening, but I know that changes are going on, just share that with your partner. Get them included, have them in the loop as much as you can so that they can understand how you're feeling, because some of those feelings are really muddy. And sometimes it helps to have a partner kind of as a sounding board to share those things with them and say, hey, I know you're home and you can't see exactly what it's like, but I am really confused, or I'm really in awe, or whatever it might be. Just keep the lines of conversation open as much as possible. And if you know that you're going to be out of communication for a certain period of time, cell service isn't good for the next few days, make sure they know that too. And then perhaps plan a little bit more time where you can chat. sometimes just getting to the top of a mountain is a great time to have a conversation, because you can take a deep breath. And if it's a convenient time for your partner as well, wherever they are, you can really have some good, deep conversations. To kind of bring that full circle, here's another hiker comment about relationships and the impact that the trail has. This person says, hiking made it hard for me to be a good partner at times. I was just using so much emotional energy and mental energy on getting myself through that I did not have a lot to spend on another person. That's okay, as long as your partner understands. If they understand that you got to do this thing, you have to go through this journey, and that you might not be able to express how you're feeling, if they are compassionate and patient in that way, then that's fine. If that's something where if you kind of shut down because you need to process and they feel like they are being shut out, then that can be a real challenge for your relationship. Again, communication is the key, even if it's communication to say, you know what, I'm kind of overwhelmed right now. I can't talk about it, but I just want you to know that I'm sort of going through something, and hopefully they can sit tight while you work through that, and then come back and have a good conversation with them after you get through whatever it is that you're struggling with. And then one other thing in terms of being a good partner is that you're going through such an amazing experience, right? I mean, there are views at every turn. There's trail magic. There's trail family. You're meeting cool people. It is just so transformative. And your partner may be sitting at home working the same old 9-to-5 job, maybe one that they don't particularly love, and they may get a little bit envious. They may feel left out. They may feel like your experience is overshadowing their experience. And they may feel like because you have so much to tell them, that they can't get a word in edgewise, and that you are not hearing what's going on in their life. So make sure you take the time to listen, even if it seems mundane because of all the excitement that you've got going on. Like, just hit a fire closure. We had to jump up 100 miles because, we can't hike through. That's really some drama, right? But it's equally important for you to know what your partner is going through and listen to them as well. Talked about infidelity, but also if you're worried that your partner that you're leaving at home is going to cheat, I do have to tell you that if somebody is of that mindset, that's a character issue, and they're going to do it no matter what. You don't have to be away. You hear so many stories of people where they're, having somebody in the bedroom when you're off at work. Those kinds of things happen. Don't think that somebody's going to be unfaithful just because you're not there. If somebody's going to cheat, they're going to cheat, and it has nothing to do with you. It is about them. It's about their choices. They need to own it. Hopefully that won't happen. I really, really hope that won't happen. I hope that you have a great time. I hope that you have a great relationship. If you were looking for love on the trail, I hope that you find it. I hope that your experience is everything that you are looking forward to. Make sure that you've subscribed if you're not already. If you are a subscriber, thank you so much for being with me. I'll see you here again next time.